The night it began, the sky over Seattle looked like a painting someone had smudged with grief. It was raining again, that soft, endless drizzle that made the city glow under streetlights. I was standing by the kitchen window, stirring a cup of tea that had gone cold an hour ago. The house was too quiet. It had been that way since Ethan left. Ethan Morgan, my husband, my never quite understood. He'd been gone for 3 days. No note, no call. Just absence, heavy, echoing, and cruel. The police said he'd probably needed space. People do that, Officer Green had said, scribbling something in his notebook. Sometimes they just walk away. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man who just walked away. He planned everything, his life, his words, even his silences. So when he didn't come home, I knew something was wrong. It was close to midnight when my phone finally rang. The number was unknown. My pulse quickened. Mrs. Morgan. The voice was deep, male, calm. Yes. This is Detective Michael Rowan. I'm afraid we found your husband's car. My throat tightened. Is he? There was a pause, too long, too careful. It was found abandoned near Lake Monroe. No sign of him. For a moment, the sound of rain outside vanished. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, slow and uneven. They asked me to come in the next morning, to identify his belongings, to assist in the ongoing investigation. I didn't sleep that night. The tea went cold again, untouched. Detective Rowan met me in the lobby of the precinct the next morning. He looked like someone who'd seen too many endings. Polite, distant, efficient. He placed a clear evidence bag on the table between us. Inside were Ethan's wallet, his watch, and his phone, the one I'd called 100 times. The screen was shattered. He wasn't in the car, I whispered. No, but there were signs of a struggle, mud on the driver's side. Fingerprints were analyzing. I nodded slowly, my hands trembling. Rowan hesitated, then said, There was something else, in the glove compartment. He reached into a folder and pulled out a small, folded note. My heart sank. He placed it in front of me, sealed in plastic. The handwriting was unmistakable. Ethan. My name, Clara, written neatly in blue ink. Can I read it? Rowan nodded. I tore the seal open with shaking fingers. Clara, if you're reading this, it means I didn't come back. Don't look for me. Some truths are better left buried. The room spun for a moment. My breath caught somewhere between disbelief and denial. What does that mean? I whispered. Rowan studied me, his expression unreadable. That's what we're trying to find out. That evening, I sat in Ethan's office, the one he used for his freelance writing. The air smelled like him, coffee, ink, and cedarwood. His computer was still open. I moved the mouse, and the screen lit up. There, in his drafts folder, was a single untitled document. Curiosity, or maybe desperation, made me click it. The document contained only one line. She knows. I froze. Who was she? And what did I know? My heart raced as I scrolled down. But there was nothing else, just that one sentence. Glowing against the white screen like a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. That night, I sat by the window again. The letter on the table beside me. The rain outside, falling in endless threads of silver. Ethan was gone. But whatever he'd left behind wasn't finished. The rain didn't stop the next day. It never did in this city. It was as if the clouds knew how to match the ache in my chest. I couldn't shake the words that stared back at me from Ethan's note. Some truths are better left buried. It was the kind of sentence that belonged in one of his mystery novels, not in real life. But here it was, and I was living it. I spent the morning combing through his office, opening drawers, flipping through notebooks, checking every file, every folder. Most of what I found was harmless: tax papers, drafts, old coffee receipts. Until I opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small, locked box, dark wood, heavy with a brass latch. Something about it felt wrong. I remembered it vaguely. He'd brought it home from a trip 2 years ago, said it was a gift from a friend in Chicago. I never asked questions then. Maybe I should have. I searched for a key and found it taped underneath his desk. My heart was pounding as I slid it into the lock. I plugged the flash drive into Ethan's laptop. A single folder appeared, password protected. Of course. For a long moment, I stared at the blinking cursor, wondering what he could have hidden from me. Then I remembered something, the date we met, something he always said was his lucky number. 6/17. Our anniversary. I typed it in. The folder opened. Inside were dozens of photos, grainy, taken at a distance. All of them showed the same woman. Dark hair. Sharp smile. A face I didn't recognize. In one of them, she was standing outside a hotel. In another, sitting in a car with Ethan. My stomach dropped. For a second, I thought she was his mistress. But something about the images felt off. The angles, the timestamps, they looked like surveillance photos, not snapshots of an affair. I dialed the number on the black business card before I could change my mind. Julia Reed Investigations. A woman answered, her tone sharp, professional. Hi, my name is Clara Morgan. There was silence, then a pause. Clara, she said slowly, you shouldn't be calling me. My heart skipped. You know my husband, Ethan Morgan. Another pause. Yes. Where is he? I demanded. What was he doing with you? Her voice softened, like she was speaking to a patient on the edge. Mrs. Morgan, if you found the drive, you need to listen carefully. Whatever you think you know about Ethan, it isn't the truth. What does that mean? I can't explain everything over the phone. Meet me tomorrow, noon, at the Harbor Cafe, and come alone. Before I could say anything else, the line went dead. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the photograph from the box. It was old, folded down the middle. Ethan stood beside a group of people, none of whom I recognized. Behind them was a sign that read, The Haverton Project. He looked younger, 5, maybe 6 years younger. But what caught my attention wasn't his face. It was the woman standing beside him. The same woman from the surveillance photos. And her arm was around his shoulder. I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt like it carried meaning. The creak of the floor, the hum of the fridge, the whisper of rain on glass. I sat in the dark, his note in one hand, my phone in the other. Reading his words over and over. Don't look for me. But how could I not? Ethan had left behind a trail of secrets, lies, maybe guilt. And I was about to follow it, wherever it led. Even if I wasn't sure, I wanted to know the truth. The next morning, I left early. Before the rain started again, before I could change my mind. The Harbor Cafe sat by the waterfront, wrapped in fog. It was quiet, the kind of place where voices seemed to disappear into the air. And somewhere inside, a stranger named Julia Reed was waiting. With answers I wasn't sure I could survive hearing. The Harbor Cafe was almost empty when I arrived. Fog rolled off the water like smoke, wrapping the city in silence. I found a corner booth near the window, the kind of seat where you could see everyone, but no one could see you. I ordered coffee and waited, tracing the rim of the cup with my finger to steady my shaking hand. Every few seconds, the bell over the door jingled. Each time my heart jumped, and each time it wasn't her. Until it was. Julia Reed looked exactly like she sounded, sharp, deliberate, tired. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy bun, her coat still dripping from the rain outside. She slid into the seat across from me, without a word. Clara, she said finally, her voice low. You shouldn't have come. I didn't have a choice, I replied. My husband's missing, and you clearly know something about it. Her eyes studied me, measuring how much truth I could handle. Then she sighed and said quietly, Ethan wasn't who you thought he was. The words hit me like cold water. I know about the photos, I whispered. About the woman. Julia shook her head. She wasn't his lover. She was his partner. Ethan and I were hired by a private intelligence firm 3 years ago. We worked in deep background verification, identity checks, political research, private clients. Dangerous clients. I blinked, confused. You're saying my husband was a spy? Not exactly, she said. He was an analyst, but he uncovered something he wasn't supposed to see. That's when he came to me. He said he was being watched. My heart pounded. Watched by who? She hesitated, then leaned closer. The Haverton Project. The name from the photograph. Julia pulled something from her bag, a printed copy of the same photo I'd found. This picture was taken 5 years ago. Ethan was working undercover, tracing financial links between Haverton and several government contractors. He found proof of illegal data transfers and something bigger, something that could have destroyed powerful people. I could barely breathe. He never told me. He couldn't, she said softly. He was protecting you. Her words twisted in my chest like a knife. He was protecting you. The same thing he wrote in his letter. Julia slid a small envelope across the table. It was old, creased, sealed with tape. He left this with me 2 weeks ago, she said. Told me to give it to you if anything happened. My fingers trembled as I reached for it. Inside was a flash drive, just like the one I'd already found, and a short note in his handwriting. If you find this, it means the walls have closed in. Don't trust anyone, not even the police. I looked up at her, my voice shaking. What does he mean? Who's after him? Julia didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the window, where a black sedan had just pulled into the parking lot. Her face changed instantly. Clara, she whispered, we have to go now. We slipped out the back door into the alley behind the cafe. Rain fell harder now, echoing against the metal trash bins. Julia, what's going on? They found us, she said, pulling her hood over her head. I don't know how, but they did. A car door slammed somewhere nearby. Voices. Footsteps. We ran, through puddles, past dumpsters, down a narrow street that led toward the waterfront. By the time we reached the docks, I could barely catch my breath. Julia stopped suddenly, grabbing my arm. Listen to me. Ethan trusted you for a reason. Whatever, on that drive, it's proof. Proof that could explain everything. You have to keep it safe. What about you? I asked. She gave a faint smile, the kind that hides fear behind courage. I'll hold them off. And before I could say another word, she pushed me toward the edge of the pier and disappeared into the rain. The sound of footsteps grew closer behind me. Shadows moved through the fog, voices calling out. I clutched the envelope tightly against my chest, my clothes soaked, my hair sticking to my face. A boat horn blared somewhere across the water. And I ran, not knowing where I was going. Only that I couldn't stop. By the time I looked back, the cafe, the car, the strangers, everything had vanished into the mist. And I was alone again. Just me. The rain. And the last words Ethan had ever written to me. Don't trust anyone. I didn't remember how I got home. I only remembered the sound of the rain, the way Julia's voice trembled when she said, keep it safe. And the envelope, still in my pocket, soaked but intact. I locked every door, shut the curtains, and sat on the floor of Ethan's office. The flash drive felt heavier than it should, like it was holding something alive. For a long time, I just stared at it. Because deep down, I already knew. Whatever was on, it would change everything I thought I knew about my husband. I plugged it into his laptop. There was no password this time, just a single video file titled Haverton Truth, MP4. When I clicked it, the screen filled with static. Then Ethan's face appeared. He looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from carrying too much truth. Clara, he began, his voice quiet, almost trembling. If you're seeing this, I didn't make it out. My chest tightened. He swallowed hard before continuing. You've probably met Julia. If she's still alive, it means you're not safe either. The Haverton Project, it's not what we thought. It started as private data mining, government contracts, surveillance. But it turned into something else. He looked away from the camera for a moment, then back again. They began using personal data, medical, psychological, emotional, to test human behavior. People disappeared, Clara, innocent people. They wanted to prove they could predict a human, breaking point. The words felt like acid in my throat. I found proof, Ethan said. Names, files, transaction logs. If you can find the third drive, the one hidden with the photograph, you'll have everything. He paused, eyes glistening. I never wanted to drag you into this. But you were the only person I could trust. He took a breath, his last one maybe. If you ever wonder why I left, it wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because love was the only thing they couldn't use against me. Then the screen went black. I sat there, motionless. The laptop screen reflecting my tears back at me. He hadn't betrayed me. He'd been trying to protect me from something too dark to name. And now he was gone because of it. I thought about the first flash drive, the photos of the woman. If Ethan was right, she wasn't his lover. She was a target, a test subject. And the Haverton Project wasn't a rumor. It was real. My phone buzzed suddenly, jolting me back. A blocked number. I froze. Then it rang again. I answered. Nothing. Just the sound of rain. And then, faintly, a voice. Clara. My blood ran cold. Ethan, I whispered. But the line went dead. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The voice, the drive, the letter, the ghost of a man who might still be alive somewhere. I looked around the office, the bookshelves, the papers, the photo of us smiling at the lake 2 summers ago. We looked happy. We looked real. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Knowing that the person I loved most had built an entire second life. Right beside me. In the same house. In the same silence. I closed the laptop. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky like a slow confession. I whispered to no one. You said love was the only thing they couldn't use against you. But they used it to destroy me. When I finally gathered the strength to move, I checked the photograph again. The one from the Haverton Project. There was something I hadn't noticed before. On the back, faint numbers written in blue pen. 47.9316, minus 121.8032. Coordinates. I typed them into Google Maps. They led to a remote area. North of the city. A forest. Near an abandoned research facility. The place Ethan used to call the old project site. My pulse quickened. Maybe this was where the third drive was hidden. Maybe this was where the truth finally lived. Or maybe where it all ended. I packed a flashlight, my phone, and both drives into my bag. The storm had quieted outside, but the sky still looked angry, like it knew something I didn't. I locked the door behind me, and for the first time since he disappeared, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready to follow him, wherever this led, even if it meant finding out that love had been the most dangerous secret of all. The coordinates led me 2 hours north, into the kind of wilderness that cell service forgot. The rain had finally stopped, but the world still smelled like thunder. The road narrowed into gravel, then into dirt, until there was no road at all. I parked by a rusted fence, topped with barbed wire. A faded sign hung crooked on one post. Haverton research site, closed since 2015. Trespassing prohibited. My headlights cut across the fence, illuminating a trail that disappeared into the trees. I took a deep breath, grabbed my flashlight, and climbed through a gap in the wire. Each step echoed like a memory. The deeper I went, the quieter it became. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Branches snapped under my boots. The beam from my flashlight wavered across moss-covered walls and twisted roots. Then I saw it. A cluster of decaying buildings, half hidden behind vines. Their windows shattered, roofs caved in. The old Haverton facility. A chill ran down my spine. This was where Ethan had worked years ago, where the project had begun. And maybe where it ended. The front door hung crooked, barely clinging to its hinges. I pushed it open, and the smell of damp concrete and rust filled the air. The main corridor stretched ahead, lined with broken lights. Someone had been here recently, footprints in the dust, faint but fresh. I followed them. Each turn of the hallway revealed more of what had been left behind. Desks overturned, file cabinets rusted shut, and strange symbols painted on the walls in red chalk. At the end of the corridor, I found a locked door. A small metal plate above it read, Sublevel B, Data Archives. My heart pounded. If the third drive existed, this was where it would be. I found a crowbar in the corner and forced the door open. It gave way with a shriek of metal, echoing through the hollow halls. Inside was a small lab, empty except for a desk and a single filing cabinet toppled on its side. I knelt down and began to sift through the debris. Most of the papers were water-damaged. Ink bled into unreadable shapes. But then, under a stack of old folders, I found it. A black flash drive, taped to the bottom of a drawer. My breath caught. Written on it, in faded blue ink. EM for Clara. There was a dusty laptop on the desk. It took a few tries, but it still worked. When I plugged in the drive, the screen filled with encrypted files, and one video folder labeled Project End. I opened it. The video started with a timestamped date. April 12th, 2019. The image was shaky, someone holding a camera, walking through this same lab. Then Ethan's voice filled the room. Day 214. I can't keep doing this. The camera turned toward him, his face pale, tired, eyes sunken. They said it was behavioral research, but it's not. They're experimenting on people, tracking emotional responses through implants and AI simulations. They want to recreate consciousness, to make people programmable. He looked at the camera like he was staring straight at me. They used real volunteers at first, then people who disappeared, homeless, undocumented. They said it was progress, but it's not science anymore, it's cruelty. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I copied the data. If you're watching this, it means I didn't survive long enough to destroy it. Don't give it to the police. Don't give it to anyone. Burn it. My throat tightened as his voice broke. I thought I could save them, but I couldn't even save myself. The screen flickered. And then a sound. Footsteps. Someone else entered the frame, shadowed, taller, holding a gun. Ethan turned suddenly. The video ended. The silence that followed felt alive. I sat there, the glow from the laptop flickering across my face, my heart breaking in quiet waves. He had been telling the truth all along. He'd vanished not to abandon me, but to protect me from the kind of monsters that don't live in stories, but in boardrooms. I unplugged the drive, closed the laptop, and pressed my forehead against the cold desk. Tears came, hot and unstoppable. All this time, I'd hated him for leaving. Now I hated the world for making him choose to. Somewhere behind me, a floorboard creaked. I froze. Turned off the flashlight. Silence. Then another step. Closer. I held my breath. A shadow stretched across the wall, tall, familiar. Clara, a voice whispered. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Because I knew that voice. Even after everything, I'd know it anywhere. Clara. The voice came again, soft, uncertain. The flashlight trembled in my hand. When I turned, the beam fell across his face. Ethan. He looked different, thinner, older, eyes hollowed by fear and time. But it was him. It was really him. For a long, silent moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the slow drip of water from the ceiling. Then I whispered, "Ethan, how?" He stepped closer, hands raised like a ghost afraid to touch the living. "I told you not to come," he said softly. "You weren't supposed to see this place." Tears burned behind my eyes. "You left me with nothing but a note. You vanished, Ethan. I thought you were dead." He flinched, guilt flickering across his face. "I had to disappear. They would have used you to find me, to silence me." I shook my head. "You could have told me. You could have trusted me." He looked down, his voice breaking. "I did trust you. That's why I left." For a moment, we just stood there. Two people who loved each other, but were standing on opposite sides of the same tragedy. I handed him the flash drive. "I saw the video," I whispered. "I know what Haverton did." He nodded slowly. "I tried to expose them, but the moment I leaked the files, they came for me. Julia helped me disappear. She didn't make it out." I swallowed hard. "She's gone." His eyes lowered. They made it look like an accident. The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside, thunder rolled again, as if the storm had been waiting for this conversation. He looked up at me, eyes glistening, desperate. "Clara, you have to leave. They're still watching. I stayed here to destroy the last of the evidence, but now that you've found me." "I'm not leaving you again," I cut in. He stepped forward, cupping my face in his trembling hands. "You don't understand. If they find you here, they'll kill you too." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "Then let them. I've already lived without you once. I can't do it again." His breath caught. He leaned his forehead against mine, whispering, "You were always the only thing that made this world feel real." The flashlight flickered. The sound of rain growing louder. As if the world itself was holding its breath. He pulled away suddenly, eyes wide. "They're here." I turned. Headlights glowed faintly through the cracks in the boarded windows. Engines, doors slamming. "Ethan." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. "I copied the truth one last time," he said. "It's safe now, somewhere they'll never find it." Then he looked at me, a faint, broken smile crossing his face. "But I can't let them have the rest." "Ethan, no." He flicked the lighter. The old floor caught instantly, flames licking up the papers, the broken files, the years of secrets that had destroyed both of us. He turned back to me as smoke began to rise. "You have to go, Clara." I shook my head, crying now. "Not without you." He reached out, pressing something small and cold into my hand, a pendant I hadn't seen in years. The one he'd given me on our wedding night. "You already have everything you need," he whispered. "You always did." Then he kissed me. A kiss that felt like both a beginning and an ending. And before I could pull him with me, the ceiling cracked, and the fire swallowed the world in gold and smoke. When I woke, I was outside, rain falling softly over the ruins of the Haverton site. Firefighters shouted, sirens wailed, but all I could hear was the rain. They pulled me to my feet. I asked for Ethan, but no one answered. I looked down at the pendant still clutched in my palm. Its surface scorched, but inside, something faint glimmered. A small microchip hidden beneath the metal. He had left me the truth. And a piece of himself. Days passed. Then weeks. The files on the chip were sent anonymously to multiple news outlets. A month later, the Haverton project was exposed. Names were revealed. The world finally knew what Ethan had died for. I didn't go on camera. I didn't give interviews. I just visited the lake where we'd first met and watched the rain fall across the water, the same way it did the night he disappeared. Sometimes I swear I can still hear him. His laugh in the thunder. His voice in the rain. And when the wind moves just right, it almost sounds like he's saying, "You found me." Read epilogue, the last letter. Weeks later, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was Ethan's handwriting. "Clara, if you're reading this, it means you survived. Thank you for finding me, even when I didn't want to be found. I wanted to save the world. But you saved me." The rest of the page was blank, except for one final line at the bottom. "When it rains, look up. That's where I'll be." I folded the letter gently, pressed it to my heart, and whispered into the soft, endless storm, "I always do.